Phone option. Hi, everybody. Good afternoon. My name is Stephanie Helms. I am the Executive Director of Kline Veterans Fund, which is a homeless veterans resource here in Las Vegas. So I'm excited to be here today and talk to you all a bit about our program and about veteran homelessness in general and answer any questions that you have for me about that environment. And so I will just kind of start running through my presentation a little bit. I really want to save space for questions that you may have relative to either veteran homelessness or our program, but I want to just give you a quick intro to Kline Fund, if that's okay. So our flagship program is called Homes for the Brave, and what we do here is cover rent, mortgage, security deposits, utility for veterans who are in need. Normally they have some sort of financial hardship, and they are not able to qualify for traditional assistance programs through the VA. So our focuses are on homeless prevention. So that is the rent and mortgage payments piece, where we endeavor to keep veteran families in their homes. It's much less expensive to keep them in a home where they already live and much less disruptive to the family than it is to try to move them someplace else. Our rapid rehousing is security deposits to move veterans who are in the street or maybe sleeping in the car or on someone's couch. Those are to get them into permanent housing. Utility assistance is just what it sounds like. In the summer here in Las Vegas, it's 150 degrees, so everybody is just coming off of those summer power bills, and sometimes they stack up against you. And so we have people who apply for our program where their utilities may be disconnected if they don't get some help. And again, they can't qualify for the traditional assistance programs, so they come to us and we help them out with that. We want to make sure that everybody is safe in their homes and connected to the services that they need to get them through. And another bucket that we have are scholarships for veteran dependent students. We have expanded that this year from 3 scholarships to 5 scholarships for kids who are college bound or trade school bound. They need only have a parent or grandparent who is a veteran to qualify to apply for one of those. And then support services is where we endeavor to help out veterans who are in assisted living facilities or who are in hospice. We do that through care packages and donations of, interestingly, the most requested donation item is socks. So we have a partnership in place with a company called Soldier Socks that works kind of like Tom's back in the day, where for every pair of socks you buy, they donate a pair of socks to a veteran or active duty military personnel. And so we have a great partnership with that company that gives us those donations that we then distribute out into the community. So this is just a little bit of information about our program. January through June this year, we had already helped upwards of 426 veterans with their housing needs. This picture here is a real person. This is a real veteran. He's an Army vet. His name is Jordan. He has 2 little girls. One was recently diagnosed with epilepsy, spent a good amount of time in the hospital, and because of the round-the-clock care that the child needed, the parents were on reduced hours at work. Quickly, bills mounted up. They weren't able to make their rent and came to us for help. Now, the uniquity of the Kline Fund is that the veterans that we're serving can have an income, and what precludes them from applying to a regular assistance program like through the VA. I know you had some other speakers that probably have talked about the SSVF program or maybe the HUD-VASH program. Those are great housing assistance programs that are run through the government, but the problem is, one, the application process is really long. So once a veteran has all of their ducks in a row to apply, that application may sit on somebody's desk for a few weeks or a few months even before it gets approved. At the Kline Fund, since we're not subject to those same rules, we can quickly turn a request in 48 hours. And sometimes we do it on the same day when it's that urgent of a situation and somebody's going to be put out at noon. We can pay their rent, at 11:30 and keep them in their homes. And so we also don't apply income restrictions. It's great that they have income. We're happy about that because they're able to sustain their housing in the future. And so we also don't put caps where they have to make under a minimum amount. And that, again, is an issue with some of the more traditional assistance programs, is that if you're a single person, you make more than $25,000 a year, you can't apply for those programs. So that's what's different about what we're doing here. And so Jordan is one of those clients that came through our program. This is just a quick note on what the housing outputs were in the first half of the year. We paid those 49 months of rent and 13 security deposits and thousands of nights of shelter for those folks, those pets, and those service dogs. We also do have a fund where we have a partnership with the Raiders Foundation that helps us with service dog training for vets with PTS and mobility issues. That's another thing that we do here. The supportive services that I talked about are these utility bills, these care kits to our vets who are in hospice and assisted living, and they often don't have folks to visit them anyway. So part of that is the emotional part of visiting and then also bringing stuff that they can use. And a lot of those items are donated to us and package them up and send them along. And we're working on a holiday version of that right now. We were able to scholarships, and we also did this year a financial literacy workshop for veterans. So each year, besides our regular core programs, we try to take on an educational piece. This year it was financial literacy. Last year we did a discussion on veteran suicide, and that's just a way to kind of help some of our veterans who may be struggling with money management, which does contribute to homelessness and financial conditions, and try to get them in a class to help them out. On our board of directors, we have 3 certified CPAs, so that makes it a really easy thing for us to do and facilitate there. And in that photo is one of our scholarship winners. So this is a percentage of delivery of services to high-risk populations. And so what I mean by that is that at the Kline Fund, we try to focus in on the most vulnerable veteran categories that overlap with communities that are already marginalized, already underserved. So our female vets, families with young children, disabled seniors, veterans of color. And I make this note here that almost 65%, almost 70 actually today since this writing, of our clients are referred to us through the VA. And again, that's a case where they've gone to a VA, the homeless office or a social worker, they have a caseworker there, but they're not able to fit into any of the traditional programs, which is how they end up coming our way to sort of field those requests. This is a little bit of the demographics. It's interesting to me. So Las Vegas has 3 proximate military bases that are Air Force, but the majority of our clients are Army vets. So just a little interesting tidbit there. Another data point that I thought was interesting is how the shift in client has changed over the last couple of years. So 2 years, 3 years ago, our average client would have been a man in his 70s, a Vietnam era vet who probably lived in a low-income housing of about $750 a month. But due to the COVID crisis and its impact on our community here relative to hospitality, where everything was shut down for months at a time and all of that loss of income has shifted the age of the client that we serve here from the 70s down to 48 it is right now, which is kind of shocking. And mostly, as you can see, post 9/11 vets versus our Vietnam guys. And that has to do with our housing crisis, which I know is a problem in several areas of the country. But here in Las Vegas, there's both a lack of physical housing available and a financial condition that precludes people from getting into it. And what I mean by that is the security deposits in order to rent a place now are 3 times the rent versus your normal first and last. And the average amount necessary to guarantee housing, as I have here in my slide here, has increased by almost double just from January to June. So that $750 one-bedroom apartment last year now is about $1,200, $1,400, and that's created an additional need in our client base as well. And then in our program, they are right now representing 71% of the client base. So that's a longer conversation for another day, but what kind of things that they are exposed to, and how the programs that are in place are not as helpful to those groups who are already marginalized. And so something we do here at Kline Fund is strive to make sure that our leadership really matches up to our client base. And you can see there's some numbers with regard to our female and disabled and BIPOC population, and 100% of our board of directors are veterans, which I firmly believe creates a unique relationship between our leadership and our clients, that we are an organization that is led by people who really understand the transition from service to civilian, and what that looks like, and what that impact is on your family and your home and all that. And so on this last page, there's a QR code to our website, and just a little note that we were rated just a couple of weeks ago. We got this top rated nonprofit badge that I stuck on there, just to give ourselves some context. So that was my rush spiel. Sorry, I'm talking so fast, but there's a lot of stuff I wanted to plug in there, and I wanted to also leave a lot of room for questions and answers. Las Vegas is ranked number 5 for cities in the United States with the number of homeless veterans. Obviously, LA, Jamila, is the biggest one, and then there's San Diego, Seattle, New York, and then Las Vegas. Again, because we have these 3 bases, we have a large veteran population here anyway. And then everyone who's ever visited Vegas knows that we just have sort of a unique climate here. Our folks are exposed to things that they are not exposed to in Indianapolis or Cincinnati. So we've got gaming, we've got things that are open 24 hours, we've got alcoholism, we've got addiction, we've got mental health issues, and we've got nice weather. So people are okay to sleep out on the street, 9 months of the year before the conditions get bad for that. So that's a lot said. I'm going to stop talking and let you guys ask me some questions. Okay. So our female veterans, sometimes coming out of the service with some military sexual trauma, that is a different animal than what our male veterans are facing. And so it sort of ladders up to our women veterans are far less likely to seek help in a shelter environment for many reasons. That's one reason. Another reason is particularly if they're mothers, because in the shelter system, at least here in Vegas, most of the facilities separate the families by gender and age. So if you're a mom, maybe a Navy vet, and you show up at the shelter and you have 2 kids and you have a daughter, she can stay with you. If you have a son, he gets shipped across the street to the men's shelter, kind of on his own if he's over 10 years old. And it's a little, Lord of the Flies over there. So consequently, a vet who is a mom who is homeless will not show up at the shelter because knows that her family will be separated and send kids to the other side of the street and stuff. So it's a complex issue, but that's one thing. There are a different set of challenges on reentry. There is a parenting challenge, and so yeah, they are less likely to go to a shelter for help, and that's how they end up being more often homeless. I don't believe that there is. So each community, each county, state has one, but to my knowledge, there is not a nationwide connection point for services, which is, yeah, it's not great. Most of our clients have mobile phones. They have cell phones. There's this notion that if you're homeless, you don't have anything, but mostly everybody still has a phone. And so to the extent could be created that would be a touch point for listing the different services from the street, I think that would be ideal. I participated with the National VA on their Mission Daybreak campaign, which was a solicitation for innovative technology teams to think of solutions to veteran suicide. And that was a judge on that program. And I can't go into specifics about what each submission had in it, but it were some really interesting AI stuff around identifying symptoms and putting measures into place that I think could be cross-platformed over into homelessness. So yeah. Long way to say no, I don't think there is a nationwide database of services that are available. No, no questions. This is a great question, and it often we have one that is facilitated by our local United Way, but it's money down from FEMA. And so that grant has restrictions on it in terms of how we can spend the money. And so it requires the applicant to have a Nevada ID, for example, to be eligible for a program. So if a person does not have a Nevada ID, they can't be served by that bucket of money. And some organizations only use that bucket of money, so they would not be able to be eligible for that program at all. Ours is not like that, which is, again, why our program is different. So for us, if the veteran comes to us and they have demonstrated need and they have the rest of their stuff in order, but they don't happen to have a Nevada ID, we can still help them. We just help them out of a different pool of funding. Now, we do, for our program, require an honorable or under conditions discharge, and for the veteran to have completed their term of service. And those are really our only two requirements, which is very unusual. Our program is very low barrier to entry, purposefully, so that we can, fill those gaps and be a safety net for all the folks who don't fit into those other programs or cannot wait, 6 months to get help. Again, complex issue. And the homeless bed space here in Las Vegas is about 1/3 of what our actual homeless population is. So that's a whole nother thing. Even if, in perfect conditions, there would be only enough space for 1/3 of the actual homeless population. And here, the homeless veteran population is 12%. I believe nationwide it is 9 point something, maybe 10%. So we're a little bit higher here anyway. And I think that the question was about having your papers in a row. We do request a copy of the DD-14 because that's what gives us the character of discharge in order for us to vet that veteran and do it fast. So when somebody comes and they already have their DD-214, it's super fast for us to get them some help. If they don't have it, we just go into a database that we have with the VA and pull their paperwork from there. So it's pretty easy to vet those veterans and determine their actual service, that they are a veteran, and what the years were and what the character of discharge was. I actually missed that. I had a meeting that I was on at that same time, so I was double booked. I didn't get to see it. We collaborate with the VA all day, every day. So I wasn't looking to to learn anything that I didn't already know in the process of us working with VA social workers and caseworkers all the time. The VA is under-resourced like the rest of us. There aren't enough people to fill all of the roles, which is why things take longer there. And some VAs in some locations are better than others. If you go to a VA healthcare in Las Vegas, it may be different from what you see in San Francisco or from Dallas. And so each one is relative to its community. And yeah, for us, it's just a little too slow. If I'm staring down a long line of veterans who don't have a place to sleep tonight, uh, my first concern is not, sending them back to the VA so that they can get into a program that will help them in a different way. I want to close that gap right now and get these folks off the street. I have not seen anything that was super user friendly that was mobile based. So for us, that thing would need to be mobile based because that's mostly where our clients have access to the web, right? If they're homeless, they're not on a computer. They may be in a public library using that system to get onto our application, which is all online. We have a client portal, and that's how the clients apply for services. And in the event that they don't have access to the internet or they don't know how to use it, some of our seniors, they'll get to a VA center, or we will personally sit down and go through it with them. But I haven't seen like a mobile sort of application that would connect people to services in a really easy way. Like if you're dialing 911 or if you're dialing, 588 for the suicide hotline, there's no, dial these 3 digits to be connected with homeless services, which seems like a, a thing that could be put to good use. Well, housing for sure. So, like I talked about, we only have enough shelter space for 1/3 of our homeless population on any given night. And what happens is folks stand in a long line to wait for space in the shelter because they can't be there in the daytime. I should back up on that for people who are not familiar with the homeless shelter system and what that looks like is that you can't stay there all day and, sort of hang out. Everybody gets kicked out in the morning and you have to go find something else to do. And then they line up again at, 3 or 4 in the afternoon to try to get a bed for the night. So there's a long line there. And then it's sort of when they get to the max number of people, they just cut off the line, and then everybody has to figure out what they're going to do next. There's no sort of number queue reservation system. What do I do next if they have 150 beds and I'm number 151, and I'm in that line, got a phone in my hand, but there's nothing to tell me what to do next, where to go. um, this may sound goofy, but the way I think of it is, when you go into a parking garage and there are red or green lights, an indicator that tells you how many spaces are available in there. So you're not driving around and around the parking garage, right? If all the spaces are filled, there's something that tells you that there isn't such a thing for available space in a homeless shelter for veterans or for anybody else. So there's a lack of physical space for sure, and not a way to close that gap on a given night. If I need a hotel room, I can jump on, a website and find one right now, but there's no way to find a available homeless shelter. Or if a shelter is not available, here's a list of resources of other things that you can do right now. So I don't see that there is a connector for those services. That makes sense. They don't. No. And they almost and the reason why is because they almost never do, right? Like they know that they don't have the space available to accommodate the volume. So there's no, kind of, hey, we have, two beds open for whoever wants it, like you're getting on the bus. It's not like that there. And then here also, and I think it's the same in LA, there's been a criminalization of homelessness where, people can actually be arrested for hanging out on the street if there is a bed available, but there's no mechanism for which they would know that there is a bed available. It's kind of dumb. Right. That's what I'm saying. Ideally, that's what I'm talking about. That would be great that there's some sort of queue, some sort of notification system that's maybe even a text that goes out and says, hey, at Catholic Charities, we have 3 beds still open at 4:30, on Friday. But there isn't one in place like that I'm aware of. And people get stuck in the cycle. They'll show up at the hospital in order to just have a place to sleep tonight, and then they'll get sent to the psych ward, and then sometimes they get sent to jail, and it ends up with good people just being stuck in this circle of nowhere to go. There's no place to be, and so then they congregate in camps and spaces, and then they're run out of there by the police. In fact, where the homeless corridor is here near downtown is where the groups congregate. So they wait in line for those beds, and if they don't get them, everybody's sort of just kind of standing around on those blocks in those areas, and then that has spilled over into, maybe down the street a little bit. And because of the nature of our economy here and our tourism industry, the homeless are chased out of areas where see them that would reflect poorly on our city as a tourist destination. And I'll take that one further. In 2019, the city of Las Vegas made a declaration that there was no more veteran homelessness in Las Vegas, which is far from true. Obviously, or I'd be out of a job, which I would love to be, because then that would mean there are no homeless veterans, but that's not the case here. And every month when the point in, sorry, every year in January, when the point in time, it's called the pit count, is done, where people, we literally go out into the communities and count homeless people. The numbers are always inaccurate because you're not allowed to approach, you are not allowed to ask how many people. If you see a tent, you have to write down 1.8 people to accommodate for that tent, whether or not 12 people live in that tent. So the numbers are always super off. I got off on a tangent there, but to answer your question, no, there is no, sort of call system that says there are this number of beds available here. So all reasons for us to keep people out of that shelter system, which isn't serving them appropriately anyway, and get them in real permanent stable homes. And there is a lot of talk about temporary facilities, structures like shipping containers or, barracks type stuff. And the issue with that is that you are putting a veteran in a physical environment that is like a cell or a jailhouse, and I don't feel like that's treating them with the dignity or respect that they deserve. It's not, everybody knows it's not an apartment. A shipping box is a shipping box. It's not out on the street, but it's not a home either. So there's also that. Sure. Okay. Okay. Yep.
I'm at hotline.
I will. I'll answer that in Slack for sure. Thank you guys for having me. I hope this has been informative. informative. It's been fun to participate. Yeah, and you can visit us at KlineVeteransFund.org and learn more, or email or text me, send a bat signal, and I'll answer your questions all day. I'm really passionate about talking about this mission. Okay, see everybody.
So, okay. Well, I'm not sure. I'm just seeing, um, I was seeing the slides before. I'm not sure how to get back to the other view. Let's see. I was seeing the last presenter's presentation, but I'm not seeing the avatars. Yeah.